Welcome back, guys. In this lesson, we will talk about how to use enhanced e-commerce data layer to send data to Facebook. Now, if you have an e-commerce site, you would understand the power of enhanced e-commerce tracking, that you implement and send data over to analytics. When you send e-commerce data to analytics, you'd be able to understand the behavior of the visitors on your site, the purchase behavior, the shopping behavior, the checkout behavior, product performance behavior, and many other reports that you can check in analytics and thereby improve the performance of your campaigns, right? But any e-commerce site, remember, they need to implement enhanced e-commerce tracking. If they are not implementing enhanced e-commerce tracking, they're missing out on great opportunities as to how they can really fine tune their performance, right, and improve their sales and ROI, right? So fundamentally what I have seen is everybody who has an e-commerce website, they implement enhanced e-commerce tracking. If you implement standard e-commerce tracking, you can only track the revenue, and you might only track little features. You might only track purchases and the revenue. But if you want to track the whole shopping journey, if you want to see how many people eventually started the how many sessions have started the purchase activity, how many people went to checkout, how many people add to cart, how many people purchased what products, if you want to create these advanced segments, it's important that you implement enhanced e-commerce tracking. Now, if you have an e-commerce website which is hosted on WordPress, which is a WooCommerce site, you directly have a plugin that is created by Thomas Geiger. If you use this plugin automatically creates the data layer on a particular page. For example, if you go to a product page, the data that Facebook or Google wants, right? This plugin will put that data in the right format, the way Google wants it. If you go to the add to cart page, the product that was added to cart, the information of the product is placed in the data layer in the right format, the way Google expects. So you don't have to do anything. All you have to do is just install this pixel. If you have a Shopify store, you have plugins available. You can simply go buy those plugins, and those plugins will do the enhanced e-commerce data layer part, right? They send data to analytics and all. But I'm working with Facebook now. I'm running Facebook. I want to run dynamic ads. Now, the power of dynamic ads is this. If you have big inventory, if you have a lot of products, you practically cannot create one ad for each product. So in that case, what you're going to do, you want to run dynamic ads. Dynamic ads is whenever people come to your website, you tell Facebook or analytics the product ID that he saw. And then you give your inventory by uploading your inventory. When it comes to Google, it is Google Merchant Center. When it comes to Facebook, it is Facebook Catalog Manager. You upload your catalog. Catalog is nothing but your inventory. And that inventory, whenever you upload, they ask you to update or upload certain data, right? Certain data in those the data layers. Sorry, the Catalog Manager or the Merchant Center, right? So whenever people come to my site, I don't just tell analytics or Facebook that a person came and saw the page. Remember, all this while we were discussing the lessons, page view is nothing but whenever page loads, but I want to send extra information, and that is where events have come into picture, right? So whenever people come to a page, any page, product page, add to cart page, after all, it's a page. But don't stop only informing Facebook and analytics they just came to a page. Tell them what page it is. If it is an add to cart, tell them it's an add to cart page and the products that people added to cart. If it's a product page, tell them he came to a product page and the products that he saw. And if you do this, what's going to happen is when people come to my first product, or imagine I have 1,000 products, you come to my first product. When you leave my site, Facebook is notified that you came to my site and you saw product number 1, 2, 3, 4. And when you leave my site and again go back to Facebook, Facebook will dynamically create one ad. How do they create one ad? I've given all my inventory in the catalog. So Facebook will go to catalog, check that particular product map it with the particular ID that I'm sending, and create an ad and serve it to you. Same goes with dynamic remarketing of Google Analytics, or you implement the Google Analytics or Google Ads, right? It's important that you send data to analytics and Facebook. But I have seen in my career that majority of the people who have e-commerce site, they implement enhanced e-commerce tracking, whether it be custom coding it or whether it be working through a plugin, right? I would just take you through more on it. If you go to enhancedecommerce.appspot.com, this is the demo site that Google have created for anybody who has an e-commerce site and want to implement the data layer. Now remember, you don't have to do anything. Simply tell your developer to put the data that you want to send to Google. On product page, the syntax is different. The schema is different. On add to cart page, the schema is different. On purchase page, the schema is different. You just have to tell your developer to put the data in the right format in data layer. We already discussed what is data layer in the previous lessons. I will not dwell too much on it. And this is not a GTM concept. I'm talking about pixel, so I want to restrain myself to pixel, right? Now, if you see this site, this is a demo site. So if I go to this page and click on it, this enhanced e-commerce can be implemented in two ways. You can use the GTAG code. If you are working with a developer and you want to customize the very GTAG code, you can simply use it. You send an event whenever people go to the category page. Here you see, view item list means where I came to a category page. So whenever people come to a category page or a product detail page, you send an event called view item list. And all the products that the user saw, you put them in items array. You see, items is an array, and this array is an array of objects because each product represents an object. You see, ID, name, price, and all these are key value pairs. Like that, there are multiple products, and multiple products, each is one object. They're placed into one array, right? But it is always recommended that you use GTM, right? Because GTM has this inbuilt feature where whatever you put in data layer, GTM can read it, provided you tell GTM the path in which the values are placed. So GTM can read it and send them over to analytics of Facebook. So data layer dot push. So what you do is you simply tell your developer, whenever people go to these particular pages, I want the data to be placed in a data layer, right? So data layer, remember the syntax or the schema or the rules and regulations of data layer is this. You need to have an object e-commerce. In the e-commerce object, you need to have an impressions array. This is an array of objects. This is the syntax. So when people go to a product page or a category page, you tell your developer to push the details of those products in a data layer in this format. E-commerce object in the impressions array of objects, right? Now let me show you something else. Now Prashanth, what if I go to a particular product? If I go to a particular product, on this particular product, what you're going to do? You tell your developer to push the code in this format, e-commerce impression. Now Prashant, I went to a particular product detail page, right? Why impression? Why? Because you see at the bottom there are 4 products. So these products data is also sent because they got impressions. But the person visited the page, this is the detail page. Now you see the code here, you see impressions will be 1, 2, 3, 4 objects, but detail will only be in the detail. Detail is an object in that product. Product is an array, which is one object because I went to one product page, one particular detail page, right? But 4 impressions. So this is the format. So if you have already implemented the data layer in the format that Google wants you to implement when you were implementing enhanced e-commerce tracking, you don't have to tell your developer to rewrite a custom code again to send the data to Facebook. If enhanced e-commerce tracking is already implemented on your site, I will teach you how you can read the values from the enhanced e-commerce data layer and send that data to Facebook. That means you don't have to work twice to create 2 toads, one for analytics, one for Facebook. No, the developer has done its work. Now we will use the data that developer already placed in data layers and read that through GTM and send them over to Facebook when we are implementing, when we want to run dynamic ads. Let me take you through. Now imagine, if it is a dummy site, this is a category page. When you come to my category page, I am not sending a page view content, view content. Generally page view is sent because page view, whenever page loads, page view is sent. But this is an important page. And Facebook says on any page which is a category page or a product page, send an event called view content, which is a standard event. I am not sending it. But remember, when you send standard event view content, you should also send the IDs of the product. Right? You can use DOM scraping technique also, but I'm not using DOM scraping. I'm using data layer, and data layer is a recommended one. Why? The data layer is placed by the developer. DOM scraping is, yes, you can still do it, but the problem is even if one part of the code breaks, the whole code will break. That is why in case data layer is not working, then you can approach the DOM scraping technique, but ideally data layer is recommended. So I am assuming that data layer is already implemented. I will show you. This is a WordPress site, a WooCommerce e-commerce site. So data layer is already implemented through a plugin. So I will just take you to the plugin so you'll see in reality. Now what I'm going to do is I go to preview. I'm just waiting for this to be completed. I'm taking the site under preview. He's asking me to open the site. This is the demo site which one of my boot campers have created. She practiced everything right up on this site, and so I'm using this site as an example to create this video. Right now, see, whenever a person goes to one category page, let me do this. You go to one category page called Herbal. So whenever you go to category page, enhanced e-commerce is already implemented. Enhanced e-commerce is already implemented. So the plugin that I'm using, a plugin by Thomas Geiger, GTM for WordPress, it pushes the data in the right syntax into data layer. And I'm going to show that. I don't know, for some reason. So let me go to tag assistant. Let me load it again to see what there's any problem. Yeah, it is now connected. There was a trouble there earlier. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on the store and I'm going to herbal raw materials. When I go here, I want to show you the data layer which is already pushed. I showed you enhancedecommerce.appspot.com. The developer, which is the Thomas Geiger plugin, he is sending the data into data layer. Now you see, first page was this. Second, I came to second page, which is a herbal raw materials. Now when I come here, you see the values in data layer. I did not push it. It is the plugin who's pushing it. I showed you already e-commerce impressions. Why impression? Because this is a category page. If I go to a particular product page, you will find something called detail. Here there is nothing called detail because I did not go to none of the product specific page. Here I am only seeing the category. I will show you. Okay, let me show you again. It is e-commerce object. In the e-commerce object, impressions array. Array is an object. Uh, uh, Array of objects. Each object is an array. Each object inside an array, multiple objects. Right. Remember, whenever you want to read values from an array, you always use the 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 index, which starts with 0. And if you want to read values from an object, you specify the dot and the name of the variable that you want to read. Now what I'm going to do is let me open one product page. Now when I go to this particular product page, you see the values that are now in data layer. You don't have to really worry because Google already gave you the whole ecosystem, what codes to be placed when and where and in what format. Now, when people have come to the third page, which is the third page, the Rudraksha page, you see, it is sending e-commerce detail in the detail object, e-commerce object, detail object, product array, because I went to a product specific page. But still impressions are being sent because there are four products which you got the impression. That is why impression array is also sent. So what I'm now going to do is I'm going to read values from these data layers, right, and send them along with view content to Facebook. How I'm going to do that? I'm going to show you in the video. So you see, I want to share details dot. Okay. For first, what I'll do is I'll go to the category page. Let me go to the category page. I want to see the syntax and then go to data layers in data layer variable in GTM and try and create one variable which will read the values from the data layer. Now see, if I go here, I go to DOM ready. Let me go to DOM ready. I'm still in data layers. You see, this is a data layer object. In the data layer object, e-commerce object in the e-commerce impressions. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create e-commerce impressions. So see what I'm going to do. I'm going to go to variables now. Data layer variable. I'll give the name as DLV EE e-commerce dot impressions. Just to cross check, e-commerce in the e-commerce object impressions array. Now remember, impressions in array. Right. So whenever page loads, what this data layer variable will do is it will read the values from the data layer, which is going to be an array. Why? Impressions is an array. Right. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to write one custom JavaScript code. The custom JavaScript code which is reading from e-commerce. So I'll write EE enhanced e-commerce, and then I write content IDs. I want to read the IDs of all of them and send them with view content to Facebook. So I already created one variable which will read the impressions array. So I will write one code here, variable prods is equal to DLV e-commerce dot impressions. Then I will declare variable I, and I will also declare one array called variable products is equal to array. I'll write one condition if there's nothing in this variable, because when you go to add to cart, you might not have e-commerce impression, you might have an object called add to cart, right? So if not equal to prods, I'm simply saying return. Then I'll write one for I is equal to 0, I less than prods dot length I plus plus. I is equal to, if you want to see the code, I not equal to prods, return. Okay, now here what I'm going to do is I'm going to push all these content IDs into an array. Here see product is an array, I'm using the push method. So what I'm going to do, prods of I dot, go and see now in the prods of I, what is prods e-commerce dot impression, and in this why I, because it's an array and array is always used by index, so I'm using of 0 of 1, where instead of 0 and 1 I'm using I because I is a variable which starts with 0. In that I want to get ID dot ID. Return products. So I wrote one function, prods dlv enhanced e-commerce commerce impressions I products is equal to object, if not equal to products nothing is there, simply return it. If I is equal to 0, is it 0? I want to check one, 0. I less than products dot length I plus plus products dot push. I am pushing all those products into an array. Yes. That's why I created two. So I'm now going to go to the tags. Now I'm going to go to the tags. I create a new tag. HTML tag. I'll write something called FB view content event tag, because it's a standard event view content. I will simply put track as per Facebook. I'm sending content IDs. Don't send view content only, send extra parameters as to what products you saw, because he's going to a category page. I want to send all the product IDs that you saw. Remember, we just created an e-commerce product IDs, CJS content IDs. I'll close this. See this again, track view content. I'm sending content IDs, and this is the custom JavaScript that we have created, which will return an array, and this array will only have the product IDs. So we're trying to read what, we're trying to read the values from this impression object and only push the IDs into one separate array. So that is exactly what is stored here. And remember, we have to fire this tag. When? After the Facebook pixel is initialized. So I'm simply going to go and put that to fire after the Facebook pixel is initialized. I'll create a new trigger. I'll check if I already have. I've pressed so many stuff. So let me go and create a on DOM ready, on some DOMs, where page URL contains something called store. What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to read value from the data layer, which is already available when you've implemented enhanced e-commerce tracking, and read values from the data layer and put them in the right format that Facebook expects us to send along with the events, maybe custom events or standard events. I'm trying to do that. Now I click on preview to go to the preview mode. I'm still waiting for the site to, yeah, tag assistant is connected. Yes, it's connected. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on the store. Let me go to store. You see now, view content is sent. Along with view content, the parameters sent. They're all into an array. How do I do that? Reading value from the data layer, which is already implemented through enhanced e-commerce tracking. But you see the value here. It says the pixel is not collected to catalog. Of course, yes. If you want to run dynamic ads, you need to upload your catalog and you need to connect your pixel to a catalog. So with pixel, you send the product and the ID of the product and details of the product that people interacted with or saw. So Facebook can map it with the products in the catalog manager and run ads dynamically to them. It's a prerequisite. I will not speak more about that because this is not a course on Facebook ads. This is particularly for pixel. So this is also important. You need to connect your pixel to a catalog. So Facebook can map both of them and try and run dynamic ads to people based on the products they saw. So if 100 people come to my site, each of them saw a different product. So when you go back to Facebook again, each of you will see the same product. I'm not creating one ad for each product. Facebook is doing all this work and I'm supplying Facebook with all the information they need to implement these dynamic ads. So in my next lesson, I will tell you how to send a purchase event and how to read other values from the data layer and use it for different purposes when it comes to Facebook ads. Thank you so much. I will see you in the next video with something more interesting. Thank you.